Hello, church. Pastor Tim speaking to you again today from the friendly confines of the home office, and it's good to be with you today. I've been spending some of the early part of this week watching the services and the tributes for John Lewis, the civil rights pioneer and the congressman from Georgia. You know that he passed a week ago, and you know something about his part in building the kingdom of God for righteousness and justice, especially during the 1960s, but all through his life. And I was so impressed again in hearing this because you may not know this, but John Lewis actually attended and graduated from seminary. He was a colleague in ministry. His intent at one point was to go into ministry, and the fact of the matter is, he was a minister and he had a ministry. I was so impressed with him because his words and his life coincided, they cohered. He worked for righteousness and justice, and he was willing and able to put his life on the line if necessary. Watching John Lewis in those ceremonies reminded me of the first time that I went to Nicaragua. And it's the reason that I became involved in all of this work in Nicaragua, and so many of you have joined in the intervening years. Back in 2001, Damon Klaus and I were the first two from our church to go down to Managua and then into the villages. We had a wonderful experience for those 10 days, seeing what it looked like to work with people and for people in their places they called home for the kingdom of God. But it was that last night in Managua, a Saturday night. We went out to dinner together as a group, and I had the good fortune of sitting next to Gustavo Parajon. Gustavo was the pastor of the First Baptist Church in Managua. He had been an American Baptist missionary in Managua since 1967. And I knew of his fame and his legend, but I'd never met him, and I'd never heard his stories. But that evening, he regaled me, and I asked question after question. I asked what it was like as the revolution approached in the late 1970s. The Somoza regime was under fire, especially from Jimmy Carter and his administration, with their emphasis on civil rights and human rights. So Somoza gathered 4 Baptist pastors and asked them to go to Washington, D.C. and testify before the Senate that there were no human rights abuses in Nicaragua. And Gustavo said, I respectfully declined. I said, what do you mean? I told them I could not go. I could not say that there were not any human rights abuses in Nicaragua. There were. As naive as I said to Gustavo at that point, but weren't you afraid for your life, afraid for your family? And he said, oh, yes, I was. But that was it. Very matter of fact. He was able, too, to make his life cohere, to give it some consistency between what he preached, what he said, and what he actually did. I just thought about what an impression that made on me. I was all in from that point. I wanted to be a part of something that was building the kingdom of God with someone like that as their leader. This is what we are all about as people of God. It's not just simply living our lives and waiting for the kingdom to come. The sweet by and by will be its reward. Now, I'm looking forward to the resurrection as much as anyone else. But I've been given, and so have you, a certain number of days and years in this life to build the kingdom, be a co-worker for Christ and a co-worker with Christ. And I want to encourage all of us to do that in whatever ways are possible in this day and age. You know, our church is doing it with the Pleasant Valley Kitchen. It's doing it with the Mission Garden. There are many who've been involved with some of the recent demonstrations in Black Lives Matter. These things are important because they're eternal. They are what we were made for. I'm thinking of Mother Teresa as I end this day. Mother Teresa, as you may remember, formed the Missionaries of Charity back in 1950 in Kolkata, India, and now there are thousands of them spread around the world. Daily, she made it her job and the job of the nuns who ministered with her to go out into the streets of Calcutta, to bring in those who were dying and those who were derelict and those who were on death's door. And they ministered to them precisely because someone should minister to them. And one day, Mother Teresa said she was asked by somebody a similar question to the one I asked Gustavo. She was asked by this person, how do you do that? The person said, I wouldn't do it for $1,000,000. And Mother Teresa responded, neither would I. We do it because we're kingdom workers, because we're disciples of Jesus Christ. So this week we have numerous opportunities, and there will be other opportunities too. And if they don't present themselves, it's our job and purpose as Christians to go looking for them. Let's build the kingdom brick by brick, day by day, because it's the one thing that's eternal, and it's our job as Christians.